The letter arrived on a Tuesday, 3 days after my stepfather died. I hadn't spoken to George in 5 years, hadn't set foot in that house in 7. Yet here was his final message, delivered by a courier who waited expectantly for my signature. My name is Michaela, and I thought I'd left the Zimmerman family drama behind for good. But George had other plans. "You're kidding me," I said, staring at the envelope. My best friend Nicole peered over my shoulder in our shared kitchen, coffee mug frozen halfway to her lips. "Open it," she urged. "What's the worst it could say?" I laughed bitterly. Knowing Veronica? Probably a bill for emotional damages or something equally ridiculous. The paper was thick, expensive, exactly what you'd expect from the Zimmerman estate. My hands trembled slightly as I broke the seal. "Dear Michaela," the letter began in George's precise handwriting. "If you're reading this, I've passed away. I know we haven't spoken, and I bear much of that responsibility, but I'm asking you to be the executor of my will." The coffee mug crashed to the floor. Nicole swore, but I barely heard her. "There's more," I whispered, scanning further. "He added a private codicil just days before he died. Veronica doesn't know about it." "Holy shit," Nicole breathed. "Are you going to do it?" Memories flooded back. Veronica's sneering face at my high school graduation, Willow accidentally spilling wine on my dress at Christmas dinner, Oakley mocking my scholarship to State College while he failed out of his 3rd private university. "You don't have to," Nicole added softly. "You owe them nothing." I touched the signature at the bottom of the page. George's final stroke of the pen had been decisive, dark, like he'd pressed extra hard to make his point. My phone buzzed. A text from Ismail Marshall, George's lawyer. "Ms. Horton, regarding the executor position, please advise if you accept. Time sensitive." "You know what Veronica always said?" I looked up at Nicole. "That I'd never amount to anything in their world, that I was just the awkward leftover from George's first marriage. Michaela, she made sure I knew I didn't belong. Every birthday George missed, every family photo I was excluded from, every time she called me the other daughter to her country club friends." I picked up my phone, fingers hovering over the keys. Another text from Ismail appeared. "Mrs. Zimmerman is expecting full control of the estate. She doesn't know about your appointment." A slow smile spread across my face. "You know what, Nicole? I think it's time I showed them exactly what the other daughter can do." I typed quickly, "I accept the position. When is the official reading?" Ismail's response was immediate. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. All parties will be present." "You're really doing this?" Nicole asked, watching me grab my laptop and pull up flight options. "George gave me one last gift," I said, booking a ticket to my hometown. "He made me executor knowing exactly what Veronica would think of it. He knew what he was doing." "And what exactly are you going to do with this power?" I closed the laptop and met her concerned gaze. "I'm going to execute his will exactly as written. Every single clause. Every single condition. And I'm going to make sure Veronica, Willow, and Oakley finally understand what it feels like to be powerless in their own home." My phone buzzed again. Veronica's number. I declined the call with a swipe. "They're probably panicking right now," I mused, "trying to figure out why they can't access any of the accounts yet. Imagine their faces tomorrow when they realize who's in charge." "Just be careful," Nicole warned. "Revenge can change people." I picked up George's letter, reading the final lines again. "You were always stronger than they knew, Michaela. Show them why." "Don't worry," I said, tucking the letter into my bag. "I'm not going to do anything they haven't already taught me how to do." The Zimmerman estate looked exactly as I remembered. Imposing, pristine, and cold as ice. I smoothed down my simple black dress, deliberately chosen to contrast with whatever designer outfit Veronica would wear to the reading. Ismail met me at the front door. "They're all inside," he murmured. "Mrs. Zimmerman has been persistent about accessing the accounts." "I bet she has," I replied, following him into the study. The room fell silent as I entered. Veronica sat perched in George's leather chair like she already owned it, wearing what looked like fresh off the runway Chanel. Willow and Oakley flanked her, both sporting identical looks of disdain. "What is she doing here?" Willow's voice dripped with contempt. Veronica's perfectly lined lips curved into a smile. "Michaela, dear, how unexpected, though I suppose even distant relations deserve closure. Actually," Ismail cleared his throat, "Ms. Horton is here in an official capacity." "Official?" Oakley snorted. "What, did Dad leave her his old golf clubs?" I took my seat across from them, placing my briefcase carefully on the antique coffee table. "Shall we begin, Ismail?" "Of course." He pulled out the documents. "Before we start, I should mention that George appointed an executor to oversee the distribution of his estate." "Yes, yes," Veronica waved her hand dismissively. "I assume that's why you've been so difficult about the accounts." "Well, I accept the position. Now, about accessing the executor," Ismail continued firmly, "is Michaela." The silence that followed was absolutely delicious. "That's impossible," Veronica whispered, colour draining from her face. "I have the documents right here," Ismail said, sliding them across the table. "Signed and notarized 3 days before George's passing." Willow snatched the papers, manicured nails crumpling the edges. "This has to be a mistake. Daddy would never—" "Oh, but he did," I said softly. "And there's more. Ismail, would you read the first clause?" He adjusted his glasses. "Regarding the distribution of assets, all property and accounts will be managed exclusively by the executor. Mrs. Veronica Zimmerman is explicitly excluded from direct financial control over any part of the estate." Veronica shot to her feet. "This is outrageous. I was his wife." "And I'm his executor," I replied calmly. "Please sit down, Veronica. We have a lot to cover." "I'll fight this," she hissed. "I have lawyers—" "Who won't be paid by the estate's funds," I cut in, "since, as of right now, you have no access to them." Oakley leaned forward, his usual smirk replaced by something closer to panic. "Look, Michaela, maybe we can work something out. Like the time you worked out how to get me uninvited from George's birthday party." I opened my briefcase. "Or when you convinced him I was too busy to join the family vacation." "That was years ago," Willow protested. "We were kids." "And now we're adults," I agreed. "Playing by adult rules. Speaking of which, Oakley, let's discuss the conditions of your trust fund." His face went pale. "Conditions?" I pulled out another document. George was very specific about this one. Something about community service hours and maintaining a clean criminal record. "This is revenge," Veronica spat. "You vindictive little—" "This is execution of a legal will," Ismail interrupted. "Every clause is binding." I stood up, gathering my papers. "We'll meet again next week to discuss the distribution of physical assets. Oh, and Veronica, you might want to start looking for a new country club membership. The one here was in George's name." Her face contorted with rage. "You can't—" "I can, and I will." I headed for the door, then paused. "You know, you always told me I didn't belong in this house. Turns out you were right. I don't belong here. I belong above it, making sure George's real wishes are carried out." As I left, I heard Willow's shrill voice. "Mother, what are we going to do?" I smiled, remembering all the times they'd whispered and laughed behind my back. Now it was my turn to make decisions behind closed doors, and I was just getting started. I sat in Ismail's office watching rain streak down the windows while he reviewed the latest documents. The memory of my college graduation kept playing in my mind, George's empty seat in the audience, Veronica's voice on the phone. "He's simply too busy with Willow's debutante ball preparations, dear. You understand?" "They're contesting the will," Ismail announced, breaking into my thoughts. "As expected," I smiled. "Let them try. Veronica's lawyer called 3 times this morning. They're claiming undue influence." "Funny," I said, "considering George wasn't even allowed to have dinner with me without Veronica's permission." Ismail shuffled through some papers, then hesitated. "There's something you should know. Before George died, he came to see me about divorce papers." My head snapped up. "What?" "He never filed them, but—" Ismail pulled out a folder. "He had them drawn up, said he was tired of the manipulation." A knock interrupted us. Willow burst in, designer handbag clutched like a shield. "We need to talk," she demanded. "I'm in a meeting," I replied coolly. "Please," she said, and the crack in her voice made me pause. "Just 5 minutes." Ismail nodded and stepped out. Willow sank into his vacant chair, looking smaller without her mother's shadow. "Remember that painting I ruined?" she asked. "The one you made for Dad's birthday. The one you accidentally spilled nail polish on. Hard to forget." "Mum made me do it." Willow's hands twisted in her lap. "She said if I didn't, she'd tell Dad about the parties I was throwing when they were away." I laughed harshly. "Are you seriously trying to play victim now?" "I'm trying to explain." Tears smeared her expensive mascara. "Mum, she always had something on everyone, even Dad. She'd threatened to expose secrets, spread rumors. And that justifies how you treated me." "No, but—" Her phone buzzed. Veronica's face lit up the screen. Willow stared at it, then declined the call. "Trouble in paradise?" "She's furious about the country club thing. Keeps saying we need to stick together, fight you in court." Willow looked up. "But I saw the divorce papers in her office last night. Dad was really going to leave her, wasn't he?" Before I could answer, the door flew open. Veronica stood there, rage personified in Gucci. "Getting cozy with the enemy, Willow?" she sneered. "I raised you better than that." "You raised me to be afraid of you," Willow shot back, standing up. "Just like you made Dad afraid." "Your father was weak," Veronica spat. "Always soft on his precious first daughter. But I fixed that, didn't I?" I rose slowly. "Fixed it how, Veronica?" "Oh, please, a few careful words here, a little pressure there. It was almost too easy to keep him away from you. Men are such simple creatures." "Get out," I said quietly. "Or what? You'll donate another piece of my house to charity?" She stepped closer. "I made you nothing in this family once. I can do it again." "No, you can't." I pressed the stop button on my phone's recording app. "But this conversation will make fascinating evidence for the court." The colour drained from her face. "You get out," I repeated, "and take your threats with you. They don't work anymore." After they left, Ismail returned. "Everything okay?" "Better than okay." I played him the recording. "Looks like we have proof of emotional manipulation to add to our countersuit." "George would be proud," he said softly. I thought of the painting I'd spent weeks on, of George's missed calls and cancelled dinners. No, he was a coward. He saw what was happening and did nothing. "Until the end," Ismail reminded me. "He gave you the power to fix it." "Not to fix it," I corrected, gathering my things, "to burn it all down and build something better from the ashes." As I left his office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Audrey, George's sister. We need to talk. There's something Veronica buried 10 years ago that you need to see." I smiled. The fire was just getting started. "You're donating Dad's Porsche?" Oakley's voice cracked over the speakerphone. "That car was promised to me." I signed the transfer papers with a flourish. "Actually, it's going to a youth mechanical training program. They'll teach underprivileged kids how to restore classic cars." "This is bullshit." "Speaking of which," I continued, "how's that community service coming along? The trust fund conditions require 40 hours per month." The line went dead. I handed the papers back to Ismail, who couldn't quite hide his smile. "The donation will be announced in tomorrow's paper," he said, "along with the new scholarship foundation in George's name." My phone buzzed. Nicole calling. "How's the revenge tour going?" she asked when I answered. "It's not revenge," I replied, watching Ismail file the paperwork. "It's justice." "Really? Because the country club gossip has reached all the way here. Veronica's apparently telling people you're having a mental breakdown." I laughed. "Let her. Every time she spreads a rumour, I donate another piece of her precious lifestyle to charity." "Michaela," Nicole's voice softened. "You're starting to sound like her." Before I could respond, Ismail's secretary burst in. "Ms. Horton, Oakley's been arrested." I muted the phone. "What?" "DUI. He's at the police station now." I unmuted. "Nicole, I'll call you back." The station was exactly as depressing as you'd expect. Oakley sat handcuffed to a bench, his designer clothes rumpled, eye makeup smeared. "Come to gloat," he slurred. "Come to remind you that this violates the trust fund conditions." I sat across from him. "You're cut off. You can't. I can, and I did. Just like you cut me off from family dinners, holiday celebrations." "We were kids," he shouted, causing a nearby officer to look over sharply. "You were old enough to know better." I stood up. "Enjoy the public defender. The estate won't be paying for your lawyer this time." Outside, I found Willow waiting by my car. "Is he okay?" she asked. "Since when do you care?" "Since everything started falling apart," she hugged herself against the cold. "Mum's having meltdowns daily, the social circle's abandoning her, even her tennis partners won't return her calls. Karma's fascinating, isn't it? Look," Willow stepped closer. "I know what we did to you was wrong, but this scorched earth campaign, it's changing you." I unlocked my car. Maybe I needed to change. Into what? Someone like Mom? The words hit harder than I wanted to admit. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Audrey. "I found the box," she said without preamble. "The one Veronica buried in the garden after George's heart attack. You need to see this." "I'll be right there." I hung up and turned to Willow. "Go home. Take care of your mother. She's going to need it." "Why?" "Because the truth's about to come out. All of it." I drove to Audrey's house on the other side of town, modest compared to the Zimmerman estate, but warm and inviting. She was waiting on the porch with a weathered metal box. "George gave me this for safekeeping," she said, hands trembling slightly. "Made me promise to pass it to you if anything happened to him." "What's in it?" "Letters. Photos. Evidence of things Veronica wanted buried." Audrey pressed the box into my hands, "including the truth about Willow's father." My breath caught. "What?" "Open it when you're alone." "And Michaela?" She caught my arm. "Remember that revenge might feel good now, but it leaves scars on everyone, including you." Later that night, I sat in my hotel room staring at the unopened box. Nicole's words echoed in my head. "You're starting to sound like her." My phone lit up with a text from Ismael. "Veronica's lawyer called again. They're threatening to go public with allegations about George's mental state when he changed the will." I touched the box's rusty latch. Inside lay the power to destroy Veronica completely. Not just her lifestyle, but her entire carefully constructed world. The question was, in destroying her, what would I become? I opened the box. The photos spilled across my hotel bed like evidence from a crime scene. Veronica, 20 years younger, wrapped in the arms of a man who wasn't George. The man's features were striking, the same high cheekbones, the same distinctive eyes that I'd seen on Willow's face my entire life. "Brock Daniels," Audrey confirmed over the phone. "He was Veronica's tennis instructor before she married George." I picked up a letter dated just before Willow's birth. Brock's handwriting was frantic. "V. We need to talk about the baby. You can't keep this from George forever." "Did George know?" I asked. "He figured it out eventually. Those letters in the bottom of the box, he wrote them but never sent them. Read the one from 2012. I found it, recognizing George's careful script. I know she's not mine, but I love her anyway. The lies are killing me, but revealing the truth would destroy this family, so I'll carry this secret to my grave." A sharp knock at my door made me jump. It was Willow. Mascara streaked down her face. "Oakley told me you were staying here," she said, pushing past me into the room. "I need to talk to—" She froze, seeing the photos scattered on the bed. Her hand flew to her mouth as she recognized Brock. "Where did you get these?" "George kept them," I said quietly. "Along with letters from your real father." Willow sank onto the edge of the bed. "What are you talking about?" "Brock Daniels, your mother's tennis instructor. The man she was sleeping with 9 months before you were born." "No," she whispered. "You're lying." I handed her George's letter. She read it, hands shaking. "Dad knew?" Her voice cracked. "All this time?" "He knew everything. How Veronica manipulated him, how she used you and Oakley to keep him in line." I sat beside her. He wasn't weak, Willow. He was protecting you. From what? The truth that my whole life is a lie? She stood up suddenly. Does Mom know you have these? Not yet. Are you going to tell her? I gathered the photos slowly. That depends. On what? On whether you're ready to face who she really is. Willow's phone buzzed. Veronica again. This time Willow answered on speaker. Where are you? Veronica demanded. The lawyers need us to present a united front against... Who's Brock Daniels? Willow interrupted. The silence was deafening. Where did you hear that name? Veronica's voice had gone cold. From the letters, the photos, the ones Dad kept. Whatever Michaela told you. Is it true? Willow's voice rose. Is he my father? Come home, Veronica hissed. Now. We'll discuss this privately. No more private discussions, I cut in. No more buried secrets. You vindictive little bitch, Veronica spat. You think exposing this makes you win? This isn't about winning, I replied. It's about truth. Something you buried in the garden along with these photos. I'll destroy you. Like you destroyed George, I asked quietly. Making him keep your secrets until they literally gave him a heart attack. Willow ended the call, staring at the photos. What happens now? Now? I picked up George's final letter. Now we find out if you're strong enough to face the truth about your mother. All of it. Why are you showing me this? She asked. You could have just exposed everything, ruined her completely. Because George loved you, I said simply. Despite everything, he loved you enough to protect you from this truth. And maybe that means something. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Oakley had violated his bail conditions, been arrested again outside a nightclub. Your brother needs help, I told Willow. Real help, not your mother's cover-ups. She nodded slowly, then gathered the photos and letters. I need time to process this. Take it. But remember, Veronica knows we have these now. Whatever she does next will be desperate. After Willow left, I called Nicole. You were right, I said. I was becoming like her. So what are you going to do? I looked at the last photo. George holding baby Willow, love evident in his eyes despite everything he knew. I'm going to finish this, I said, but not for revenge, for justice, for truth, for George. The Zimmerman estate's front door was already open when I arrived. Inside, I found Veronica methodically destroying everything in George's study. 23 years, she said, not turning around. I gave him 23 years of my life. And how many did you steal from him? I asked, watching her tear another photo from the wall. You have no idea what it takes to maintain this life. She spun to face me, mascara smeared across her cheeks. The constant pressure, the expectations, the affairs, the lies. Where's Willow? Safe, away from you. Veronica hurled a crystal paperweight at the wall. It shattered, sending fragments across the Persian rug. You think you've won? You think exposing old secrets makes you powerful? No, I said quietly, but this might. I held up my phone, showing her the email from Ismael. Her eyes widened as she read the subject line. Transfer of Zimmerman Estate Guest House to Women's Shelter Foundation. You can't, she whispered. Already done. The papers were signed this morning. I pocketed my phone. They're converting it into a shelter for victims of psychological abuse. I'll sue. With what money? I stepped closer. The accounts are frozen, the credit cards are cancelled, even your precious tennis club membership has been revoked. Mother! Willow's voice came from the doorway. She looked between us, taking in the destruction. I talked to Brock. Veronica went still. What? He confirmed everything. Showed me letters you wrote him after I was born. Willow's voice shook. Begging him to run away with you. I was young. I was scared. You were married to Dad, Willow shouted. He loved you, loved us, and you just kept lying. Everything I did was for this family. No, I cut in. Everything you did was for yourself. Heavy footsteps interrupted us. Oakley appeared, looking haggard in what were clearly yesterday's clothes. They're releasing the DUI story, he slurred. It's already online. Another scandal? Veronica laughed hysterically. Perfect. Why not burn everything? Actually, Oakley straightened slightly, I'm checking into rehab. Real rehab, not that spa you sent me to last time. With what money? Veronica sneered. Mine, I said. The trust fund conditions included addiction treatment. George thought of everything. How touching, Veronica spat. One big happy family. We could have been, Willow said softly, if you'd just told the truth. Truth! Veronica grabbed another photo frame. Here's your truth. I never loved George. He was convenient, wealthy, and too blind to see what was right in front of him. The frame slipped from her fingers as she realized what she'd said. I hit stop on my phone's recording app. That should help with the legal proceedings, I said, especially the part about never loving him. You recorded... Veronica lunged for my phone. Don't! Willow grabbed her arm. It's over, Mom. All of it. Oakley, I turned to him. Your rehab intake is tomorrow at 9. Don't be late. He nodded, looking younger somehow. Thanks. Willow, the guest house is yours if you want it. Away from here. Away from her. You can't take my children, Veronica hissed. You did that yourself, Willow replied. Every lie, every manipulation. We're done. I'm calling my lawyer. Veronica reached for her phone. About that, I smiled. He withdrew this morning. Something about unpaid bills? Veronica's knees gave out. She sank into George's chair, suddenly looking every one of her years. What do you want? She whispered. What I've always wanted. Acknowledgement. Of what you did. To George, to me, to your own children. And then you leave. The house is being sold, the proceeds going to George's charitable foundation. You're destroying everything, she said. No, I corrected her. I'm building something new, something honest. My phone buzzed, Ismail confirming the guest house transfer was complete. Willow Oakley, I said, heading for the door. You know where to find me if you need anything. Michaela, Veronica called after me. I'm not finished. I turned back one last time. Yes, you are. The truth finally caught up, Veronica. And it's not going away this time. I left her there, surrounded by the wreckage of her lies, and walked into the sunlight. The second memorial service for George was nothing like the first. No elaborate flower arrangements, no society photographers, no carefully orchestrated speeches. Just a small gathering at the children's hospital he'd quietly supported for years. Your father used to read to the kids here every Thursday, the hospital director told me. Never wanted recognition. Just sat with them for hours. Willow stood beside me wearing simple black instead of her usual designer labels. I never knew. There's a lot we never knew about him, I said, watching volunteers set up chairs in the hospital garden. Oakley arrived, 1 week sober, accompanied by his rehab counsellor. He looked healthier already, the entitled smirk replaced by something more genuine. Mom's not coming, he announced. She's refusing to leave the house. Did you tell her about the sale closing tomorrow? I asked. He nodded. She said we'd regret betraying her. Classic, Willow muttered. The service was brief but meaningful. Hospital staff shared stories about George's quiet generosity. Children spoke about the man who brought them books and told silly jokes. With each story, I saw Willow and Oakley's faces change, realizing how little they'd known their father. Would anyone else like to speak? The director asked. To my surprise, Oakley stood. I never really knew my dad. Not really. Mom kept us focused on appearances, on status, but being here, hearing these stories, he wiped his eyes. I wish I'd known this version of him. Willow squeezed his hand as he sat down. Michaela, the director turned to me. George mentioned you often. I walked to the front, facing the small crowd. The last time I spoke to George, he told me something I didn't understand until now. He said, real legacy isn't in bank accounts or social standing. It's in how we treat those who have no power over us. I saw Willow flinch, remembering her own past cruelty. I thought executing his will was about revenge, I continued. about finally having power over the people who hurt me. But George knew better. He knew that real power isn't in destroying things. It's in building something better from what's broken. After the service, Ismail pulled me aside. There's been a development. The estate's security system triggered an alarm. What kind of alarm? Smoke detectors. Multiple ones. Fire department is responding. My phone buzzed with news alerts. The Zimmerman estate was burning. We arrived to find fire trucks surrounding the mansion, smoke billowing from multiple windows. Veronica's car was gone. She did this, Willow whispered. Didn't she? A firefighter approached us. We found this in the study. He handed me a letter, unsigned but clearly in Veronica's handwriting. You wanted truth? Here's truth. You've destroyed everything I built, so I'm destroying what's left. Michaela, you thought you could replace me? Become the noble daughter George always wanted? Congratulations, the house is yours. What's left of it? Mom, another firefighter called out. We found evidence of accelerant. This was deliberate. Willow sank onto the curb, watching her childhood home burn. Where would she go? Does it matter? Oakley asked, sitting beside her. I watched the flames climb higher, remembering all the dinners I wasn't invited to, all the family photos I was excluded from. Now those photos were burning, along with everything else Veronica had valued so much. Ms. Horton. Ismail touched my arm. The insurance company will need a statement. Tell them the truth, I said. All of it. My phone rang. Nicole. I just saw the news. Are you okay? Actually, yes. I watched Willow and Oakley huddled together, finally acting like real siblings. I think we all will be. And Veronica? She chose her ending, I said, just like she chose everything else. The firefighters were getting the blaze under control, but the damage was done. The Zimmerman estate, that symbol of power and pretense, would never be the same. Neither would we. As dawn broke, I sat with Willow and Oakley on the wet grass, watching smoke curl into the morning sky. None of us spoke. We didn't need to. Sometimes the most important truths rise from the ashes. The police found Veronica in a small motel 3 states away. She'd used her last credit card to buy a bus ticket, leaving behind everything she'd spent decades accumulating. They're charging her with arson, Ismail told me as we finalized the estate paperwork. Insurance fraud, too. Has she said anything? Just that she wants to talk to you. I shook my head. Some conversations are better left unspoken. The insurance money went straight to George's foundation, funding 4 new children's programs and a scholarship in his name. The land where the mansion stood was donated to the city for a community garden. Willow's idea, surprisingly. Ready? Nicole asked, helping me pack the last box from my hotel room. Almost! I pulled out my laptop and opened a blank document. Just one thing left to do. She read over my shoulder as I typed, Dear Veronica, you won't read this, but I need to write it anyway. You taught me I didn't belong, that I was lesser, unwanted, an inconvenience to your perfect family. For years I believed you. But here's what I learned. Belonging isn't something others give you. It's something you build yourself. I'm not sending this letter just like George never sent his. Some truths are just for us to know. Goodbye, Michaela. Feel better? Nicole asked. Getting there. My phone buzzed. Willow calling. The rehab centre called. Oakley's completing the program next week. That's great. He wants you to come to the ceremony. She paused. We both do. The old me would have refused, held on to the hurt. But George's words echoed. Real legacy is how we treat those who have no power over us. I'll be there. Later that evening, I met Audrey at the community garden site. Workers were clearing the last of the mansion's debris. George would have loved this, she said, watching a family plant tomato seedlings in the first completed plot. He always said that garden was wasted on status symbols. Did he ever regret not standing up to her sooner? He regretted a lot of things. Audrey squeezed my hand. But making you executor wasn't one of them. My phone chimed with a news alert. Socialite pleads guilty to arson. Faces prison time. You know what's funny? I showed Audrey the headline. She thought burning down the house would destroy everything, but it just cleared space for something better to grow. Speaking of growing, she pulled out an envelope. George left this for when everything was settled. His words. Inside was a single key and a note. For my daughter, who always saw through the smoke and mirrors. The lake house is yours. Build something true there. Love. Dad. I clutched the key, remembering the small cabin where George taught me to fish, away from Veronica's critical eyes. The one place I'd felt like his daughter. You did good, kid, Audrey said. You did right by him. I did right by me, too, I replied, watching the sun set over the new garden. Finally. My phone buzzed again. A text from Willow. Found Mum's secret storage unit, full of evidence against everyone she knew. Should we expose it? I thought about Veronica, sitting in a jail cell, stripped of everything she'd used to feel powerful. No, I typed back. Let her keep her secrets. We're building something different. Like what? Willow replied. Something true. Something ours. Want to help? 3 dots appeared, then, yes, for Dad. For us. I pocketed my phone and looked at the garden one last time. Where Veronica's prized roses once grew, children were planting vegetables. Where crystal fountains once sparkled, simple bird baths stood. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying what hurt you. Sometimes it's about growing something so beautiful in its place that the past can't cast shadows anymore. I held up the lake house key, catching the last light of day. Ready to go home? Nicole asked. Yeah, I smiled. I think I am.